All right. So in the previous video, we talked about how to address the prompt and look at what the prompt is asking you to do in a rhetorical analysis essay. And here, what we'll do after you have read the prompt, annotated the prompt, taken a look at the prompt, now you're going to take a look at what an essay in response to that prompt looks like. What does a rhetorical analysis essay look like? Before we do that, what I need you to recognize, and I want to make sure that it is very clear, that rhetorical analysis has generally two parts to it. Throughout the essay, you're going to be, again, let me repeat, throughout the essay, you will be addressing these two questions from beginning to end. So it's not like the first paragraph addresses one and the second paragraph addresses the other question. These go on throughout the entirety of the essay. So you have to address why and how. Now, I will acknowledge that the why is typically done first, and the how is done first, and then the why is typically done second. Okay, so to make sure that we all have a clear understanding of what those mean, when we talk about the how, you're actually talking about, like, what is the author doing? I guess another appropriate question to ask as opposed to how is what? What is the author using, right? So what technique, what element, what parts of language, what is the author using? Is it an appeal to fear? Is it parallelism? Is it repetition of certain words? Is it certain types of word choice? Is it a certain tone that's being conveyed? So that's the technique that's being used, and that's where you'll actually find evidence, right? That's where evidence will be cited. Because if you're going to say how they do it or what they're doing, you actually need to provide the evidence that it's actually happening, right? So you can't make the claim that, Calpurnia argues or appeals to his curiosity. She never does. There's no evidence to support that. Again, just like we've been talking about within our argument essays, if you were to say something but have no evidence, it's just an assertion. Right? Your concrete and specific detail comes from the actual text, the evidence from the text that you are provided. Now, the other question that you need to answer is the why. This is like why or how they are effective. Like, why is this being used? And for those of you that are paying attention, you'll notice that this is your warrant. Oh my goodness. Oh, look, we've been talking about that like forever for the past few months. Warrant, just like we've been talking about within the past couple weeks or months, totally applies here. So you need to explain to me why this is important. Why is the author using this appeal? Why does Mary Ewald talk about her credibility within the Arab world? Why does she appeal to her credibility? Because it relates to her purpose of getting Saddam Hussein to release her son. Why does she bring up her husband or her son's medical condition? Well, because that appeals to the compassion that a father such as Saddam Hussein would have. Right? So that's the warrant. Why is this being used? What is its purpose? Why is it there? What is it doing? How is it relating to the purpose? How is it relating to the audience? Okay? In order for you to have warrant, you most certainly need to have the evidence, right? And I'm going to just let you know, a heads up, students typically don't have a problem with how. That's no problem. We're all good with that. No issue. Like, it's not, students can easily find a repeated pronoun. Students have no issue with that. They can see parallelism. They can see the use of metaphors. It's the why part that is difficult because, just to be honest, it takes a lot of time. That's a complex thinking. That's a complex idea to make that relationship. And it also happens because you're short on time, or because we haven't properly identified the purpose, or we haven't properly identified the audience, right? This is what completes your analysis. This starts it. This completes it. The why completes it. And if you don't have both of these, you do not have analysis. Period. Okay? So what I need you to do is take out the following. Number one, take out the Caesar sample essay and take out 2 different colored highlighters. Please pause the video and take out the essay and 2 different colored highlighters. All right, so now you have the essay out and the 2 different colored highlighters. The reason the highlighters are important is because they are going to identify, they are going to help you visually see how to provide the how in the essay. What is the student doing, or what is being provided in the essay? The evidence, but it also helps you visually see how a student, or how much the student, is presenting the why. The warrant, the explanation as to why it's relevant. That once you see that there is a distinct, it's very equal. In fact, more so, you'll probably see more explanation than you will actually see evidence. But I want you to be able to visually see how to put this in an essay. And see, just to visualize, hey, I don't have to just put quote after quote after quote, sentence after sentence after sentence, summarizing the entire piece. Instead, what you should be doing is explaining more about what you have identified as important. So you've got the 2 different colored highlighters. Before we take a look at that, let's take a look at the introduction here. So, beginning. The namesake of Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar will forever be remembered as a thoughtless man that considered nothing but his constant desire to feed his ambitions. So, you'll notice what the student first did is think, oh hey, I've read this before. I read this play in 10th grade, and I remember that Julius Caesar died. Spoiler alert, that he died because he's an ambitious turd Ferguson who wanted nothing but more power and everyone to love him. That's why he died. So what the student did is, student provided relevant info, provided relevant context, right? So the student did not provide every piece of information. You're not trying to show off to the reader that, oh, hey, I've read this before. Let me bring up Brutus and all his problems. Let me bring up Mark Antony. Let's bring up all that stuff. Let's talk about all of that in this. That's not the point here, right? The student wanted to identify something that was relevant because I bet you the student is going to talk about ambitions later on in the play. So there's that. You can provide information as you see relevant. So if the essay is talking about JFK, then you could provide any relevant information that you see to put in your essay, right? If it's a letter written by a former slave, then there might be some context that you might want to provide, right? So if it's a speech spoken by Martin Luther King, there might be some context that you think relevant to put in your essay, which is appropriate as long as it's relevant to your essay. You're not Wikipedia spouting off facts, so don't do that, okay? But continuing with this introduction. Therefore, when presented with 2 interpretations of a dream foretelling his demise, Caesar's decision to listen to Decius surprises no one. So this is kind of a nifty transition. So this whole sentence kind of works into a transition into the argument that, oh, he listens to Decius. Probably the next sentence is going to be something about why he listened, or what the whole essay is going to be about. So then the thesis, despite Calpurnia being his wife, Julius Caesar falls prey to arguments appealing to pride and masculinity, leading to his death. So in this thesis, I've noted this student is actually identifying why he chose Decius's essay, or his argument, because Decius appeals to pride and masculinity. Decius knows his audience. Decius knows that this ambitious turd, as mentioned up here, probably are going to listen to appeals to pride and questioning his masculinity. And the student actually also does a fine job of identifying, like, oh, hey, he chooses this, and this is the ultimate demise that happens to him. So seems pretty relevant. So the thesis should give me an idea of what elements you're going to be discussing throughout your essay, right? And it's not a list. The student is not listing everything. The student could have listed like, oh, talking about uses metaphors, uses similes, like listing all these different things, but instead the student focuses on the big issue at hand as to why he chose Decius, the big piece here, that he listened more to pride and masculinity than he did to anything else. So now we're going to take a look at the body paragraph. And this is where you want to have those two highlighters, right? So in this circumstance, the how is going to be yellow, and the why is going to be green. Remembering that the how, that's the evidence, right? So anytime the writer of this essay provides any type of evidence in the form of quotes, in the form of paraphrasing, summary, that would be the how. And then the why is anytime there's that explanation, right? Anytime we're told why the reader, why the arguer uses these elements, right? So we've got the two different highlighters. The how, the evidence, is yellow. The why, the explanation, is green. So going down to this body paragraph. I'm going to be walking through this and just highlighting as I go and making brief notes. So the first thing I'll note is the topic sentence, right? So the topic sentence states, unfortunately for Caesar, Calpurnia's argument heavily relies on her graphic descriptions and list of sensory details that she has seen within a dream. So this is an argument, right? Saying that she relies heavily on graphic descriptions and sensory details, right? So that's probably what the rest of the paragraph is going to be about. Now they have to prove to me that she relies on this. And I suppose you could also make the point that she isn't convincing, or this isn't effective for him, which isn't really provided in the topic sentence, but where do you suppose I'll see that? Let's say it together in the explanation. Oh, good job. In the warrant throughout the essay. Oh, we are learning. Yay! All right, so let's go through the next sentence. She begins illustrating her dream by describing a lioness has, quote, whelped in the streets, end quote, and, quote, graves that yawned and yielded their dead. That is definitely evidence. That is the how. What is she using in her argument there? And I want you to note that this student provides quotes here. And we've discussed before about the use of quotes and how they should not be complete sentences. They should be to the point. This part of the quote, 1, 2, 3, 4, uses 4 words. This one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that uses 7 words. And they're not their own they're not their own clauses. They are included in the sentence itself. So that these quotes are crucial or important to the sentence in proving a point. But I mean, it's the quotes are used effectively, right? They're used as part of the sentence, and they're used purposefully, that she's describing these ideas. Now, the next line there, that these frightening images should encourage Caesar to stay home if he values his life, right? So it's telling me that, why are you bringing this up? Because they are frightening images that would hopefully encourage him to stay home if he values his life. So the reasons that she's bringing it up is because she's hoping that she'll scare the pants off of him. Continuing, this appeal to fear, however, was not successful, as Caesar believes himself to be a courageous man. So, identifying that she uses it because it's an appeal to fear. But it's also important to note that it was not successful. Why wasn't it successful? Oh, because he's a turd Ferguson. Because he thinks he's better than that. Because he doesn't need to stay home. I'm a brave man. I don't have to worry about this lioness screaming in the streets. I don't have to worry about zombies. To show that Caesar is not fearful, right? So it's important to note that he's not going to listen to Calpurnia because he's not scared. we'll continue taking a look at this essay in the next piece. So keep your highlighters out.